Welcome to the Justice Room. Your life, your rights, your options. Experience and learn from discussions with legal professionals and other experts about the law, its challenges, and how it could affect you. Here at the Justice Room. Welcome to the Justice Room. Now, we did a show on this a while back, and it's not always set in stone. And you can always come back and modify that if something changes later.
Definitely.
Okay, so and we did a show about that, and I think maybe we can come back and touch on that another time. But something that I've always wondered about with children in divorce cases is counselors, guardian ad litems. And we could talk a little bit more, we can expand on guardian ad litems in a minute. Psychiatrists, psychologists. When would those people get involved in a divorce case with children?
Well, you can make a motion on behalf of your client, or the client can make the motion if they don't have an attorney. Can make a motion for a court to appoint a guardian ad litem. When there's an allegation of child abuse or child neglect, a child is not necessarily going to be able to come into court and testify or express their desires. And as an attorney, I personally I've never put a child on the stand, and I never would want to put a child on the stand because children don't belong in court.
But when you said that let's talk a little bit about what a guardian ad litem is.
Well, that's what I was going to get to. A guardian ad litem is the child's voice. The guardian ad litem is essentially an individual, oftentimes it's an attorney, who's appointed to represent the interests of the child. They don't have any loyalty to mom, they don't have any loyalty to dad. Their job is to find out what's in the best interest of the child, to determine that, and then they make a report to the court. Doesn't mean the court's necessarily going to follow it, but it's a way for the court to know what's the opinion of the guardian ad litem as to what's in the best interest of the child.
Would the guardian ad litem visit with the child?
Sure, the guardian ad litem is going to visit with the child. The guardian ad litem visits with the parents. Makes announced and unannounced visits on people, home studies. It's more done through the Department of Children and Families. They have access to teachers, grades, doctors, counselors, therapists.
Okay, now when would these people get involved?
Upon a motion of a party. Typically, a party will make a motion to appoint a guardian ad litem. Sometimes you might see the court suggest a guardian ad litem or do something, appoint a guardian ad litem, themselves.
Okay, but now if the court, if an attorney, either for the mother or the father, is requesting or filing a motion in the court to appoint a guardian ad litem, do they have to have a reason to request that?
Well, I think that there are, and I won't go into the specific statutory language, but there's a basis for asking for a guardian ad litem. There's got to be allegations that involve child abuse, child neglect, an allegation of potential harm to a child, or something that if the court has to be making a decision that is going to necessarily involve getting or what's in the best interest of the child and reporting that to the judge, I think that's the kind of case where it's appropriate to have a guardian ad litem appointed.
Okay, and so to be clear, in essence, most of the time when you're going to have a GAL or a guardian known as a guardian ad litem, counselor, psychiatrist, psychologists involved in a divorce case, it typically has something to do with child abuse, child neglect.
It might, yeah.
It might?
Oftentimes, yes.
Most of the time?
Correct.
Okay. So now let's talk about injunctions and children in divorce cases. And how are those involved in divorce cases with children?
Well, sometimes if a child's involved in a divorce or whatever it is, a paternity action, you might see one parent file for an injunction against the other parent, and that could be on behalf of themselves and behalf of the minor child, and it can affect the ability of the offending parent, or who's considered alleged to be the offending parent. It might have an effect on their ability to have contact, or how much contact they have with a child, or whether it's supervised or unsupervised, so on and so forth.
And so could it have an effect on the divorce case itself as to what the visitation conditions are?
Definitely. Okay. And not only on a temporary basis, but possibly on a permanent basis.
Now, when would a party the mother or the father file for an injunction with children. I mean, because you hear a lot of times about the injunctions being filed on an individual, but an injunction could actually be filed on an individual and include the minor children.
A lot of times you'll see allegations of domestic violence where the child was present. May not have actually seen what happened, but was present or exposed to whatever occurred. Might be the basis for filing for an injunction on behalf of the minor child.
Okay. And what happens if there's an allegation of this that's less than truthful? Maybe it's something that's embellished on, something that somebody really kind of made something up on that.
Unfortunately, we see that a lot, where people make stuff up to try and get, as we call it, a leg up in a court battle. Let's call it custody, time sharing, or whatever it might be.
Okay.
They'll make stuff up just to try and, get a leg up in front of the judge. And unfortunately, sometimes, they make it up. You've got an untrue allegation that you've got to deal with.
Okay. And there's a lot of different topics when it comes to children being involved in divorce cases. You also have child support, visitation conditions, all of these other items, which we can come back and talk about on a different show. But I'd like to thank you for coming back on to the show and talking to us a little bit about some of the small components of children and their involvement in divorce cases. Thank you for visiting with us again today, Mr. Orth.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. If you'd like to ask Mr. William Orth any questions about children in the divorce system or in divorce cases, or any questions in family law matters for that matter, you can reach him via his website at www.williamorthlaw.com, or you can reach his Lake Mary office at 407-772-0000. He also has a satellite office here in Orlando, Florida. I'd like to thank you for listening to another episode of The Justice Room.